Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I know you are very excited and you've been having some amazing time on the day 2 of Summit Up. Today, we have two very amazing entrepreneurs, especially in the social sector, join us here today. The first entrepreneur is someone who started off at a very, very young age, and she is the founder of Mitti Café. Mitti Café is a chain of cafes that provide experiential training and employment to adults with physical and intellectual and psychiatric disability. Her focus is not just to provide employment support to them, but is also to create awareness about inclusion and disability rights. In just a short span, Alina was featured in the Forbes list of 30 under 30. So let's not wait long and hear from Alina about her lovely journey so far. Over to you, Alina.
It's such a great opportunity to come back and speak, and for NSRCEL. The journey with it has been from the time Mitti Café was just an idea, and let me take you back, a couple of years when I was in college, waiting for placements, and with the mindset कि चलो अभी तो finally बहुत पढ़ाई कर लिया, now I'd get onto a job, and then I come across this guy who changed my life. So now who is he? So this was my final semester, last few classes, and then I meet Nero through this one documentary that I saw. So for those of you all who don't know who he is, so Nero was this emperor in the ancient Roman Empire. He was mighty, rich. He would win one war after the other and the other and the other. And one day he wins the biggest battle of his life. So when you win, what do? You party. So he decided to throw a party and he invited the who's who of Tinsel town. He invited kings and queens, he invited princes and princesses. And as evening befell, our Nero had this idea that, boss, we need some lights to make the party happening and rock. So he decided to burn waste to generate light. Till here we're all okay. So he decided to burn the prisoners of war and the poor people who were captured, who he considered no more than waste. Sitting in that classroom, I was 23 then. I realized that the problem is not Nero. So, you could equate Nero with atrocities, injustice, all the not so nice things in this world. But the problem was Nero's guests, as to how thousands of them could sing, dance, and drink when fellow human beings burnt and died. And a bigger realization for me was when I realized my reality, I realized that I was one of Nero's guests. Whereas if you feel something about anything, and if you're not willing to take action, if you are quiet about it, then you have taken a side. And that side, whatever your reasons may be, that side is that of the oppressor. So that is something that I could not continue being. I could not be one of Nero's guests. I decided that I will volunteer with organizations that work in the inclusion space. I did not sit for college placements. And while volunteering, I realized that, boss, the problem is not that there are 7 crore plus people with disabilities in our country or over 1 billion across the world. The problem is not that statistics. The problem is a larger statistics that comprises all of us, you and me. And the disability in our perception that stops us from seeing the magic in their abilities. I decided that I would create a model that is visible for those who can't see it, tangible, interactive, and the success or the failure of any Mitti Café would be directly in the hands of the community. And then why did I choose food? Because food, I wanted a common denominator that can connect people to people. So food is a common denominator that connects a mother to a child, a friend to a friend during lunch breaks, and civilizations. So food is a common denominator to generate livelihood opportunities, A, and B, more importantly, to create awareness about disability inclusion that could lead to exponential impact. So when I started my journey, since it's about entrepreneurship, I remember I did not, when I came to NSRCEL, we used to have these sessions with wonderful mentors, and one of my mentors asks me that, Alina, what is the capex and opex of your, of your business model? I questioned him back, so what do you mean by capex and opex? So when I started my journey, I did not know B of business. I did not know what capex and opex is. I remember I was rejected. So I still have a list. I was rejected at every incubation center across the country till I found NSRCEL and they somehow found and embraced me. But before that, it was, of course, a lot of trials, errors, tribulations. I had no idea about a lot of things. And of course, multiple rejections, empty pockets, failed sales attempts. So, and I remember, so our model Mitti Café is very simple. So we have these cafes within institutional spaces like corporates, hospitals, colleges, run completely by wonderful adults with physical, intellectual, and psychiatric disabilities. So when I wrote to institutions in Bangalore saying that, hey, this is my concept, and all that I require is like 100 square feet space, and it will generate livelihood opportunities for X number of adults with disabilities. So most of them did not respond. The ones who did, they were kind and they said that, no, maybe we're not ready. Your model is not proven. So what did I do? So I shifted base to this place in North Karnataka, a very, very popular place called Hubli. Unfortunately, I had never been to that place. I was not familiar with the language. But after college, I decided that, Deshpande Foundation, they said that, hey, we will provide you with support. See, money we will not give you. Networks we will see, but what we can give you is something that you need at the moment. So I was like, yes, please tell me. And they said that you come and we'll give you, so we have a go down, which came with a disclaimer that it's full of generations of rats. And the offer that would you want to take that up as your first cafe. So I did. I decided to do that. So when I went there, I shifted base, right, directly I'm from Calcutta, but I was studying in Bangalore. And then I shifted base to Hubli. With my parents absolutely being horrified, but the daughter that they've created, they just unfortunately they've had to bear up with me. So I shifted base to Hubli, and like I said, that I didn't even have a single rupee. And as entrepreneurs, I think it is extremely important to understand that the idea may be great, it may be unique, or it may be something which is not very unique. But it's not just about the idea. It is, when you talk about success, it is 1% the idea and 99% the implementation. And that's one ratio that I've learned. And another thing that I've learned over the course of my journey is that, when you start your journey as entrepreneurs, of course, you will not have money. I didn't have money. I didn't have networks. I didn't even know what capex and opex is. I didn't know anything about cash flow statements and business plans, etc., etc. But you see, your strongest point is when you start your journey, when you have nothing. So scarcity empowers you with 2-3 things, which are very important in your entrepreneurship journey. Number one, scarcity makes you creative. Number two, scarcity, when you don't have resources, paisa nahi hai, networks nahi hai, scarcity makes you desperate. And desperation is a great, great asset for any entrepreneur to have. When you're desperate, and then third, desperation. Scarcity leads to desperation. It leads to you being more creative. That leads you to becoming shameless as an entrepreneur and leech-like. So, a lot, I'm being as candid as possible, things that have worked out for me as an entrepreneur. So when you become shameless, leech-like, desperate, so these are some of the things that absolutely, brings out the strongest part in you as an entrepreneur. So when I started my journey, I went from door to door, house to house, involving the community, involving the students, involving professors, where we were setting up our first cafe inside that campus, involving absolute strangers and saying that, hey, this is what, I'm planning to do. And this model doesn't belong to me. This concept doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you. And it will not be possible unless you as a community are mobilized towards supporting this initiative. Trust me, guys. After that, since I had no money to start, my first cafe, the equipments for my first cafe, right from my spoon to the second-hand oven and the second-hand fridge, were donated by the community, by absolute strangers. And then, in the course of time, while you start your journey, you need to know that to grow exponentially. Now, see, one is linear growth and the other one is exponential growth. And to grow exponentially, you as an entrepreneur cannot do it alone. As an entrepreneur, if you want to be successful, you have to utilize the resources of the community. What resources am I talking about? The biggest resource that you can utilize, from the community is kindness. Where one is that you give kindness and you believe in kindness. And this is what, I have seen in the course of my journey across multiple years at Mitti Café, that people are genuinely good. You just have to go out there, build your guts and ask them for help. So when I started my journey, I remember, Mitti Café is what it is because of the community, and I cannot emphasize that more. And this is something that Naga sir, Malvika ma'am, and a lot of my other mentors, when I started my journey, they inculcated this in me. And even at my university, we talk about community-driven approach, participatory approach, but these are approaches that practically work. So I'll tell you why. So when I started my journey, like I said, lack of resources. I remember that I was bargaining with, a local electrician, saying that, uncle, for the second-hand fridge, you don't charge me 600, please charge me 400. And then we came to a common conclusion that, 500, he's going to charge me to repair that fridge. And I was really happy. So he came, he repaired the fridge. He saw our concept and he's like, Namaste ma'am, main chal raha hu. I was like, sir, aap apna paisa le lijiye. He refused to charge me that money. He said that is his contribution to the community. The local printer, guys, Shrikant uncle, he refused to charge me. He said he translated the vacancy pamphlets that I went from door to door, house to house, distributing that if you have a disability, age no bar. Of course, you have to be above 18, but above 18, if you are, then nothing else. I mean, age no bar, education no bar, experience no bar. If you are ready to work, we are here for you. So Shrikant uncle, the local, printing. So he has his own printing shop. He refused to charge me. He said, Alina, when you start earning, when Mitti Café does business, you pay me back double. And I have trust in you. So it is the community, it is a student community who helped me clean that tin shed that was full of generations of rats. It is because I did not know, I'm not, as an entrepreneur, there are myths that you have to be like a jack of all trades. Not at all. I have multiple things that I'm absolutely, even today, if I look at the business plan, I just feel that there are ants crawling on the screen. But then, of course, you need somebody who is good with it. So for me, I have found my partners in crime, people who help me pro bono, low bono, and people who joined the team, leaving, joined Mitti Café, leaving great opportunities, high-paying jobs, because they have been as passionate as I have been. So it's important to realize that, for example, for me, business plan, I'm a heart person, but, you have to have a balance between, and I lead from my heart, but you have to have a balance between your heart and your head. So if you're not good at it, it's okay, no problem. You have to get somebody who's good at it. Now, getting back to, when you talk about entrepreneurship, okay, and a lot of times you have to ask people for support. So a lot of entrepreneurs, especially social entrepreneurs, now look at the market, they have this feeling that, oh, I'm asking them for help, and you feel uneasy that, they are doing us a favor. That is one thing that you have to absolutely take out from your head as a social entrepreneur. So when you've taken on the mantle of social entrepreneurship, you are doing something, you're doing it because of the matter of your heart. You're doing something because, you're passionate about really bringing about measurable change in the society. And you need to realize that you will find enough and more people who are equally and more passionate. So when you are asking anybody for any kind of support, whether it is, going out to a corporate and asking them for grants so that, you can impact X number of children or X number of adults with disabilities, or, you're working in healthcare, livelihood, education, whatever. Or you're going out there and you're saying, hey, can you help me with the business plan? Or hey, can you help me with the design for my cafe? So remember that anytime you ask anybody for any kind of support, you need to realize that you have to think from that person's perspective. What is the value add that you're giving to that person? And it doesn't always have to be monetary. There are so many other things that you can absolutely support. If, for example, if a corporate is giving me, funds to set up a cafe, or for training, or for Karuna meals, where our team of adults with disabilities cook and serve meals to the economically vulnerable. So it is, it is, of course, they have their own set of mandates, where they want to, give out their grants. So that is one. Second is, would they want their employees to be engaged? Thinking from their perspective, or the feel good factor, that you are giving them an opportunity to contribute, you're doing it on their behalf. So it is always a partnership and an equal relationship, and that's something that you need to have in your head, and thinking from their perspective, what is it that 1 rupee that they are giving us, and what is it that we are giving back, in terms of the impact, in terms of any other, the return on investment, what is it in it for them? So it's important to also think about that. Now, when I started my journey, a lot of things require faith. So, of course, I've had a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith in God, the Almighty, and you need to tie your camel up, apne ko kaam karna hai, and then depend upon God. But it is important to tie your camel. So when I started my journey, like I mentioned some time back, that I went from door to door, shop to shop, distributing vacancy pamphlets myself, and then for a week almost. There was no response, and then something happened that absolutely changed the history of Mitti Café. So I remember I received a call, and this call was from this girl's mother, and she, so her daughter had a disability, and she didn't even know what disability the daughter had. And I said that, please bring her in, and, I would love to talk to her. And I remember when she came in for the interview, she came in crawling, because at that point of time, her family could not afford a wheelchair. And today, if you would give her, say, this phone, her hands would shake and it would fall. And this is 5 years back. Today, the same girl sitting on a wheelchair, she manages 10 other people with disability. She's the manager for our first cafe. Her name is Kirti. And as I talk to you, we have hundreds of Kirtis across the 17 Mitti cafes that we have. We've been able to train thousands of more adults with disabilities, and who have in the last couple of years served over 6 million meals and beverages, thereby enabling us to create awareness about inclusion with every meal or beverage that we serve. And during COVID, and this is also very, very important, pivoting, when you talk about entrepreneurship. So pivoting, because there'll always be challenges, whatever you see on your, your cash flow or your forecast plans may not work out accordingly. This is the thing right from the first day till forever. In entrepreneurship, of course, none of us were anticipating a COVID, but a COVID happened, and guys, 13 of our cafes, which were within institutional spaces, went into hibernation, which meant hundreds of adults with disabilities who were dependent on it, we had to support, and we didn't know what to do. But when you talk about social entrepreneurship, and as the topic is that, y'all want an insight into the mind of a social entrepreneur. Social entrepreneurship is such a, it is such a tool that gives you immense strength to absolutely fight back and resilience to bounce back, because the community has your back, which is extremely important to acknowledge. So when when 13 of our cafes shut down, what did we do? One is that, one of our employees, and we've rehabilitated a lot of adults with disabilities from the road who were either begging or were homeless. So one of them, he's got cerebral palsy and autism. So he comes to us and he says, this is at the peak of COVID, people who are hungry, and we know how to cook, and so now this boy, we started with a few hundred meals with the support of some professors from IIM Bangalore, and today our team of adults with disabilities have served over 2 million meals and beverages to the economically vulnerable, thereby enabling us to create awareness about inclusion. So remember, to end with that, it is, and again, we started multiple cafes in public spaces. We started gifting as a vertical. So we've been very, very occupied during COVID with the support of the community. And to end with, generally when we talk about numbers, we talk about millions of people, below the poverty line. We talk about hunger, we talk about violence, we talk about discrimination. But and the numbers are so heavy. We often wonder that where do we start from? So my answer to this is this one last story that I'm going to tell you. So there was a high tide and there were millions of starfishes on the seashore. So there was a young girl. She was picking up one starfish, throwing it into the water, the other starfish throwing it into the water, and a wise old man comes and tells her, "Young girl, what are you doing?" So she continues to do what she is doing, and this time he asks her more assertively, "With young girl, what are you doing? What difference does it make?" What she did has changed my perception about change, and that gives the power in each of your hands. So she picks up one starfish, she throws it into the water, and she tells the wise old man that it made a difference to that one. So for me, my first starfish was Kirti, and every day it is a pursuit to find the other and the other. And there is nothing called social work, that I think we should eliminate that from our dictionary. It is our social duty to pay the social debt that the community has given us. God has given us the amount of privileges that we have. And like Dushyant Kumar says that mere seene mein nahi to tere seene mein nahi wo kahin chahiye, which means that irrespective of whether the ignition is in my heart or yours, irrespective of whether I live or I perish, that ignition needs to follow on. And with every small act that you do, it can be life changing for that one person. And with that, you have the responsibility to inspire just that one more person, and the world will change for the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alina. That was so inspiring. I'm sure the audience has loved every single thing that you just mentioned. And it is so inspiring to hear that at such a young age, you had that awakening and you wanted to impact others out there in such a, amazing way. And we really appreciate, and we're very proud to say that, you are one of us at NSRCEL. So thank you so much once again for being a part of this talk. All right. Okay, so audience, I hope you have been having a fun time listening to all the speakers here today. I would like to take this opportunity and welcome our next speaker. She is the co-founder and CEO of Anthill Creations. Anthill Creations is focused in bringing back play to all children by mobilizing communities to build inclusive and interactive playgrounds from upcycled waste material like scrap tires and drums. Interesting, right? She has impacted more than 200,000 plus children, 300 playgrounds, over 18 states. Wow. Okay, so why don't I just now go back and have her share her story and her journey. Over to you, Pooja.
Hi, everyone. It is so nice to be back to NSRCEL. The journey with NSRCEL started in 2016, and it's been a roller coaster ride since then. So before I start, my story of Anthill, a little bit introduction about myself. I belong to a small village in UP, did my schooling in Lucknow, and then went on to IIT Kharagpur to study architecture. While I was studying architecture, I wasn't sure if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I wasn't interested in designing buildings, so I experimented. I tried landscape architecture, I tried conservation, and started volunteering, participated in a lot of extracurricular activities in school. In that hustle, I ended up writing a book on women entrepreneurs. And the most exciting part about that, that process of writing the book was meeting these entrepreneurs. So I was, meeting these entrepreneurs who had been running their own companies, listening firsthand their challenges, their stories. And one of my biggest perception broke during that time. That earlier I used to think that to be an entrepreneur, you need to have a lot of capital, you need to be super intelligent, someone like Steve Jobs. But when I met these women who were based in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Gujarat, I realized that these are people just like me and you, who started with absolutely nothing but a strong willpower. And the purpose of writing that book was to inspire people, but I think I myself got inspired in that process. So I knew that I want to start something of my own, but I wasn't sure what. So like I participated in a few competitions in school, in college, and one day I was just going to a school where I used to volunteer, and I saw that there were some children who were playing with broken cement pipes. They were using their slippers to play a game of badminton, and I just spoke to my friend who was with me that these children don't even have something as simple as a playground. Uh, I mean, as a society, we focus so much on classroom education, but we don't realize that play is so important for children. So, me and my friend, we thought, let's build a playground for them. We've studied architecture. Let's get our friends together. Let's get a few tires together and build a playground for these children, because we ourselves were students and we didn't have money. So that's what happened. Like in my final year of college, we ended up building our very first playground made out of tires and waste material, not knowing that this will become an organization or how big this problem was in the first place. Post college, I took up a job as a product manager because of the peer pressure. I didn't have that confidence or even the resources, the money to start something of my own. And like I had no idea that building a playground could also become an organization. But in the next 1 year, when I was working in Bangalore, we received over 300 requests from all over the country, from schools, from centers, that they also wanted a similar playground in their school. And that made me realize that there's a big need of playgrounds in our country. If you look at government schools, more than 95% of the schools do not have proper play infrastructure. I remember one of the very first schools where we went to build playgrounds. The headmaster told us that don't build a playground here. It is going to distract my children from studies. And I felt that there was something terribly wrong with that mindset. So in 2017, I quit my job and took this venture full time with one of my co-founders. It's been 5 years since we've been doing that. NSRCEL came early in our journey, and I think that was very, very critical. I was starting out right after 1 year of college, and I had no idea, how to run a business, how to run a social enterprise, how to run a nonprofit. So at that point in time, when I quit my job, I also realized that there were a lot of incubators and accelerators for-profit startups, but there was absolutely nothing that was for early stage nonprofit organizations, because typically, NGOs are run by people on the side, or it is run by people who have done well in their lives. And here I was starting out my career, doing an NGO. So, but I would say Serendipity or NSR started its very first social incubator, and we applied for that. It was like, I think that before the incubation, the 3 month launch pad that happened was very, very useful for us. It helped us learn a lot of things that would have taken us years to learn. Simple things like, the compliances or how to build a team. A lot of these things were very, very useful. And as an early young founder, I believe one of the best things you can get is the support of mentors. And we were very, very fortunate to have some of the best mentors who helped us with their experience. Where we lagged, I think they sort of filled up the gap. And the best part about these mentors was they would never tell us, or they would never spoon feed or guide us as to what to do. They would just ask us questions that, why do you want to do it? Even the decision to register ourselves as a nonprofit or a for-profit came from a lot of questions that our mentors asked, that what is at the core of what we want to solve. And I think looking back, I feel that was very, very helpful for us. If I look at the past 5 years, I think the very first year, this was super challenging, but it's become more challenging with every passing year. And even today, I would not say Anthill is a success. We're still, just growing and trying to create more impact in the society. So what we do at Anthill is, our vision is to bring play in the lives of children. We build playgrounds out of tires, scrap materials. We've built over 300 playgrounds across 20 states. Now, last month, we built a playground in Kashmir and Assam. So we've covered 20 states. And it's been a roller coaster journey. Like in the very first year, when we went to some of the corporates for funding, we realized that this was something new. This didn't align with the education. So we had to convince people why play is also education. And then there were a lot of people who said that this is waste. I remember somebody said that since it's a waste, that is not what they want for their kids. So the entire concept of upcycling and recycling, I think, is not so well accepted in our society yet. When we upcycle, I think now there's more awareness that's happening around circular economy and upcycling. But back then, I think it was very, very challenging for us to convince people. So we started with government schools because we felt the need was most there and most of the children were there. Today, we build these playgrounds in government schools, public spaces. We've transformed cities and transformed these dump yards, got them cleaned, worked with the government to make them community parks and playgrounds. So that's what happened. And I think the journey was going okay. In our second year, we got support from some of the best corporates like Salesforce. Bharat Petroleum funded 60 playgrounds where we did a cluster approach where we were able to optimize the time and cost of building these playgrounds, and we were able to reach to a lot more children. We have also built these playgrounds for refugee communities. I remember my visit to one of the Rohingya refugee community, and I saw that there was a lot of gender bias. The girls were not allowed to play. I saw some of the kids fighting, and it was very new for me seeing children like that. And after conversation with the community, we realized that they needed a safe place where children could play or spend time. Because children have so much energy in them, and it needs to go out somewhere. If you don't give them this platform, a place where they can play or spend their energy, they will end up putting it in negative places like fighting. So I think it's very, very important for children to have access to play, and that is what we're trying to do. And like last year when the COVID hit, we were building playgrounds, but after building playgrounds, children wouldn't come because schools were closed. Children were in their homes. They were not coming out. So we felt that what is the point of building playgrounds when children are not coming? So we started COVID relief work because we work very closely with some of these communities, and we could see that they were in really difficult. People have lost jobs. Most of these parents of these children were migrant laborers, and they all had lost jobs. So we started COVID relief work with the support of our funders, and a lot of people also came and supported these communities through us. And when we were doing this COVID relief work, we saw that children are not used to such small spaces. Most of these families had very small house, and children are usually out, but because of COVID, they were confined in the home. So imagine if me and you felt so so frustrated being inside, how these children would have felt. So we thought if children cannot come out, let's take play to their homes. And children from, most of these children do not have any access to digital devices or internet. So we came up with an offline solution. We called it Play in a Box, where we have designed 6 different games catering to each development area. So we have a game which helps children in their physical development. So there's a hopscotch mat, there's a twister game. Then we have games which help them in their gross motor skills, social emotional skills. If there are siblings in the house, they can play together. And we have distributed over 50,000 of these boxes. We also collaborated with a designer and designed a new game called as Numbo Jumbo, which basically helps children learning maths in a very fun and playful way. So I think I strongly believe that play is the most natural way of learning. If you look at some of the biggest edtech startups, everyone is trying to gamify education. But I think that play is at the essence of education, right? It is the very first way how children start learning in their early years. And I think play, I believe that education should not be boring. It should be something which children should be naturally excited about. And learning is not just cognitive. When children are outside, when children are playing with mud, when they are exploring nature, they are learning a lot of things like negotiation, compromise, I've seen in these playgrounds how one child helps the other child climb up the jungle gym, or we've seen children patiently waiting for their turn on the swing. So I think these are some of the 21st century skills, some of the social skills that are not taught inside the four walls and can be learned while they are in their comfort zone of a playground. If I ask you what is your favorite childhood memory, I'm sure playground will pop up in your head. Some of the best friends that I have made were in playgrounds, and I feel it is a very, very essential part of a child's life. So that's what we're trying to do. We are constantly innovating. Recently, we won a competition called as Ramatrat, organized by the government of India, where we have designed a mobile playground. So we've converted a truck into a playground which can be shared by a neighborhood amongst 4 or 5 schools. So there is this one playground which can go to different schools, and even if we do not have space in that particular school, this truck just opens up into a playground, and children can have fun and learn through these games that we have developed. We are also now building inclusive parks. So I remember visiting one of the blind schools, and like I had never met a blind person before that, and I started questioning why is that, because a society is not designed to be inclusive. And it was very surprising. When I went there, children were going around on their own, and I asked one of the instructors that, do these children really don't see? And then the instructor told me that, you have to look at people's strengths rather than their weaknesses. So even though they cannot see, their sense of hearing is very strong. They remember where is what. So we spend a lot of time with users, with children, before we design a playground with them. And we built our very first playground for blind children in 2019, where we used elements of sound and textures, and because play is for everyone and we should leave no child behind when designing a playground. So that's what our next plan is, that we are spending more time with children, with experts, and trying to build more inclusive parks. And not just parks, but like I believe as a social entrepreneur, if you ask me what keeps you ahead of the competition, the only way is to constantly keep innovating. I don't have any gyan as such, which I gain. I can share my story, and I'm sure there are a few things which you will find relevant. There are a few things which might not connect, but yeah, that's what my journey has been. Thank you.
So thank you, Pooja, for sharing your journey and your thoughts with us. I think we have a couple of questions from the audience. First being that you mentioned that, coming from a premium institute and then choosing a path that not many would, right? How did that decision at that point feel? If you can dig a little bit more, like, coming from that kind of background, and then the friends and your colleagues probably at that time, and your parents also. So how does someone navigate that, especially if someone doesn't come up from a premium institute, and they would have to work a little bit more hard, right? They have to take a step further. So what is your take on that?
So I remember when I told my parents that I want to quit my job and run a non-profit, they thought that I'm going through a quarter-life crisis and I'll come back. So my parents didn't understand what I was doing. A lot of my friends also said that maybe you're ruining your career. There's no sort of future in non-profit. I was looking for examples and stories who would have gone on a similar path, and I was really able to find someone then, because of the limited network that I had at that point in time. But I always believed that as an entrepreneur, you're not running an organization, you're solving a problem. And I was very passionate about bringing play in the lives of children. I felt it is something that we need as a society. And I wanted to bring my knowledge of architecture or design in some way, and give access to children to play. And I think the biggest motivation at that point in time was that I don't want to have regrets in life. I want to do it. I want to give it a try. I think coming from a premium institute, I had a very high paying job at that point in time, and quitting that and going to a zero salary was not easy. And I think a lot of us get stuck at that point in time, but you have to just take the leap of faith and, start your own organization. There's no right time. There's never enough experience to start something of your own. What really helped me was the support system that I had built post I started my organization of mentors, friends who have been with me even until today.
Great, thank you. And what were your a few anecdotes or probably something that you would like to share with young female entrepreneurs who are starting up, especially in the social sector, keeping in mind that it's a little bit more difficult because you have to do the groundwork. Maybe people are not taking you as seriously because of their gender bias. Also, from community that you're dealing with may not have that kind of idea of women being empowered, and they might not support that. So how do you navigate through
that? So it all happens very like you wouldn't face it. I think like if you're in a city like Bangalore, you don't face a lot of gender bias. But I remember for our kind of work what we do requires a lot of field work, requires a lot of travel. And my parents didn't allow me to travel at night, which meant that I had to lose a day in traveling before going to a place. So these are very small things which used to literally frustrate me, that why do I have to put in that extra effort? But the book that I had written and the 9 women that I had met, one of the common things that I found in all of these entrepreneurs was they never complained. They never talked about their challenges. Like they always talked about, yes, there was a challenge which we navigated it. A lot of them got a lot of restrictions from their families, but they convinced them. They did what they really wanted to do. And I think that was the motivation that I also sort of learned. As a female entrepreneur, I always, try and find and look for people who have broken those glass ceilings. And after a while, I realized that you will never find someone who has been exactly on your path. So you have to create that path. And that is what I would say to anyone who's starting out. Look for inspiration around you, but there's an opportunity for you as well to make a new path for the future generations. So, we have to change the biases that exist in the society, and complaining won't help that. It is only through actions and growing your organization that we will be able to do that. This year especially has been so inspiring with seeing so many IPOs by the female founders, and I think we have a better world now.
Absolutely. I think when we do see women in leadership roles or achieving, I think it gives us a sense of assurance that our dreams are attainable as well. And, if you could just sum up maybe 3 things that you think that women should forget about and prioritize when it comes to growing their ventures, be it social, not for-profit, what would your tips be?
So the first thing is I've seen a lot of women, including myself, we keep others above us and we prioritize others' comforts and do a lot of compromises. But if you're starting your own company, remember that your company is the most important thing. And whatever it takes, right? Like if you have to convince people, prioritize yourself and your company. So I think that would be my first lesson. Second is I feel mentorship. I mentioned in the beginning, I feel as it's very important to have the right kind of mentors. They become your support system. There are a lot of moments as an entrepreneur when you have self-doubt, when you feel low, and your team may or may not be there for you at that point in time because they're also looking up to you. So you also have to have a strong face there. So build your support system. It may be friends, family, anyone. But I think having that support system really helps. And third is, I think, don't give up. A lot of us give up too soon. And I think the only difference between successful and non-successful people are, the successful people tried again. So if you fail, just take it as a stepping stone and try again.
All right. Thank you so much, Pooja, for sharing all your thoughts and your experience. I think it means a lot to hear from someone who has managed to, put away all the prejudice that is associated with the sector and just go ahead. And like you said, if you're determined to get something done, you have to be at it and you have to be on that path. So once again, thank you so much for joining us.